So far here in PNG, great to be here. Great to have the opportunity this morning to speak with Prime Minister Marape, have a conversation about the relationship between our two countries and the potential to continue to grow and strengthen that. I also had a good conversation with Prime Minister Brown around the relationship with the Cook Islands, very important for New Zealand, and so we had a range of conversations, and then breakfast with a variety of Pacific leaders and the opportunity to speak about the forthcoming meetings and a busy day ahead.
Did you have any concerns, or did you raise any concerns about security that PNG is about to sign with the United States on your breakfast meeting this morning?
We had a conversation about that. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that this is not new territory for Papua New Guinea. They have existing security relationships with the United States. And this isn't just about security. It extends to a range of other things, including, electrification and so on. So I would see this more of an extension of an existing relationship.
It is a significant upgrade to the existing arrangement they've had though. When the Solomons signed its security pact with China, Jacinda Ardern condemned it as gravely concerning. Why is this superpower security pact not gravely concerning for New Zealand?
Well, I think there's a variety of things. One is this is a very transparent arrangement, so we know what's in the arrangement, and we can see that it's an extension of an existing relationship. And it isn't just about military presence; it's also about development. It's about electrification, and it's about a range of other different issues where there is an existing solid relationship that's being built on here. Ultimately, it's a question for the respective countries rather than one for New Zealand. But from a New Zealand perspective, we do see them as different.
What were the regional leaders wanting to bring you on that, and they are worried about it. So what would you say to them?
I think that's ultimately their call. I think one of the things in the Pacific is each of the countries in the Pacific has the right to take a different view on any of these matters, to articulate that and to represent that. I can represent New Zealand's position. I would not speak on behalf of other Pacific nations.
This was your first chance. This was your first chance to sit down with the PM of PNG. Can you just be specific? What did you convey to him about this security pact, and what did he convey to you?
Look, ultimately, I didn't necessarily convey too much to him. I was largely, hearing their perspective on the matter and what they're hoping to achieve from it. I think they hope to achieve a strengthened ongoing relationship with the US, something that they already have, so they're looking to build on an existing relationship.
Mr. Marape mentioned in there at the top of the meeting that security issues were really tough in this space at the moment. Did he raise militarisation with you, security issues with you in those chats? In the context of the US Pact?
Not in the context of the US Pact. I mean, ultimately, I guess I just got some greater clarity as to what they're aiming to achieve from the arrangement.
There appears to be two schools of thought with these security pacts being made there, and whether it's a burgeoning Cold War of the superpowers being sort of muscling up against each other in the Pacific. Where do you stand on whether this could be the next Cold War?
Well, New Zealand doesn't support militarisation of the Pacific. Having said that, military presence does not necessarily signify militarisation. For example, New Zealand has a military presence in the Pacific regularly following natural disasters. We send military assets up here to support countries that have been affected by natural disasters. Our Hercules will come in and bring supplies. Our ships will come in and bring supplies and extra support. Those are areas where I think Pacific nations look to New Zealand for additional support in times of trial, and we're very proud to be able to provide that level of support. So I think we shouldn't assume that all sort of military partnerships are necessarily about conflict.
Where do you stand on the sides of the argument about whether that the Pacific and this region and extending the South China Sea is essentially becoming the new front line of a burgeoning Cold War?
I think our message, the New Zealand message to all Pacific nations, is that we continue to be here as a trusted partner, one that has the interests of the Pacific at heart, one that wants to be at the end of the phone when Pacific countries do want to talk about any of these issues. We're always happy to engage in dialogue with them about that. we recognise that these are sovereign nations. They have the ability to make their own decisions. But New Zealand certainly wants to be seen as a trusted partner here in the Pacific, and I believe that we are.
Did you talk about, did you,
It may come up. I'm not sure whether it will come up or not, but I think New Zealand's position on AUKUS has been clear right from the beginning. You know, we don't see ourselves as being part of any nuclear arrangement, which is the primary driver of AUKUS. In terms of what they might be talking about under the second pillar, as we've already indicated, that's not yet clear exactly what that might involve.
You do talk about the transparency of the US agreement, yet that hasn't been the case, and the US are only meeting for the group tomorrow after it's signed, and the details haven't been made public here. So how can you justify saying it's transparent?
Well, ultimately, that again, these are getting more into questions that are more appropriately addressed to PNG. They're certainly relatively open in the conversations that I had with them about what they're hoping to get out of it and what it involves.
Prime Minister, what do you think it's going to mean practically on the ground, the security pact? Is it going to mean it's going to be troops here, or submarines, or warships, and at what point does that start to worry you?
Those are ultimately questions for Papua New Guinea.
did you ask?
We didn't get into a huge level of detail on it. Obviously, it was a relatively short conversation, but we talked about it more at a high level.
We've been meeting with Modi in place today, and the New Zealand-India Business Council has last year called to reset the relationship after 15 years of essentially seeing trade talks, and perhaps New Zealand and India working together as friends as opposed to us basically just trying to sell them dairy. What are you hoping to achieve from your meeting with Modi, and does it signal, I guess, the start of a new pact for New Zealand in our relationship with India?
I guess I'd probably prefer you ask me the question after we've had the meeting rather than before it, because I'd rather have that conversation with him before having that conversation with the rest of the country.
Ahead of your meeting, what are your intentions of what you would like to get out, and are you hoping to warm the relationship?
The New Zealand-India relationship is already a very warm relationship. We obviously have a lot of people-to-people exchange. We do have a significant economic relationship with India already. It is one of our larger trading partners already. And so we see opportunity to grow that for mutual benefit to both countries. I can tell you as a former Minister of Education, I know that India highly values the education relationship that we have between our two countries. There are a lot of Indian students come and study in New Zealand, and I know that India, from previous conversations, sees that as a potential area of growth. I'm sure that there'll be an opportunity to canvass all of those sorts of issues.
A defence.
I think if you look at our relationships around the world, New Zealand takes pride in the fact that we have a diverse set of trading relationships, but that we don't just base our international relationships exclusively on trade.
A defence analyst.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
There's a lot of environmental issues happening in the Pacific. Was that a part of any of the discussions that you had with the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands and in Papua New Guinea?
Certainly came up in all of the conversations that I've had so far. So in terms of the conversations with the Cook Islands, for example, we were talking about renewable energy, we were talking about climate change mitigation, so issues around access, for example, to the islands and making sure that we internationally are contributing to resilience, Pacific resilience, in the face of the ongoing challenge that climate change is going to pose for the Pacific. Of course, it came up in the conversations here around Papua New Guinea as well, where it's clear that the effects of climate change are already being felt. And so our international contributions to the climate effort, I think, have never been more important.
Yeah, and did they discuss any domestic challenges that they're facing in their countries right now that you think that would be able to help out in some sort?
I think things like helping to build energy resilience and more resilience in core infrastructure, particularly around transport and so on. I think we in New Zealand can play a role within the existing Pacific support framework that we have. We're certainly keen to do so. In terms of New Zealand's international contribution to the climate change effort, a very large part of it is being directed here to the Pacific.
A defence analyst I've spoken to says that the PNG-US deal, that Washington will see it as a win, that Australia will see it as a win. Does New Zealand see it as a win?
Ultimately, I'm not going to pass a judgment on it. It's a question for the countries concerned. They're ultimately entitled to have their own arrangements.
In your opening remarks before your meeting with Prime Minister Marape, you touched on the potential to improve or strengthen the relationship with New Zealand and PNG. What do you mean by that, or how is that going to happen?
Yeah, we had a variety of conversations about how our public services can work together more closely, for example, in areas of interest where we may have some past experience or past expertise that they may look to draw on. We talked about the ongoing relationship that we have, strengthening New Zealand's relationship in the Pacific generally, and of course specifically with PNG. Yeah.
Just going back to the general debate system, that now that you're actually here and you're leading some of these Pacific Island leaders, you're unable to attend TV. How has it been so far that you've been able to have that personal presence here?
Yeah, I think New Zealand's presence has been really warmly received here, and I'm really encouraged by that. The conversations have canvassed all of the issues that you might expect them to canvass. Climate change clearly is a very, very real focus for Pacific leaders at the moment, and they want to see a sense of urgency from other international leaders as well. So I was able to provide some reassurance of New Zealand's commitment to tackling both the causes of climate change and also the effects of it. All of the issues that you would expect to be discussed and relatively brief interactions so far have been discussed.
What was it like being in the room? Did you get along? Are you still friends?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as a Pacific country, we have a relatively New Zealand's a Pacific country too. We've got a relatively laid-back style when it comes to these sorts of things, and I think that works well.
Is the US a Pacific country? They said that they are in their community.
Well, they certainly are. I mean, if you look at where Hawaii sits within the Pacific, it is a part of the Pacific.
And also, Philip Mertens, did you discuss the ongoing hostage situation with Marape?
I know we didn't have a conversation about that.
Why didn't you raise it with him?
We are dealing with that through a range of other. I mean, I'm always careful about what I say about this publicly because we are dealing with this through a range of other avenues, and I don't really want to get into a public debate about that while that's happening.
I appreciate that there's security things going on in the background, but is there any update? I mean, we are in Papua New Guinea. You just sat down with their PM. Any updated information you can give us on that?
There's nothing really that I can share at the moment.
Trust is a big issue with people on the ground in the Pacific, not just government officials, because people are sort of worried about America and having all these countries coming into the country. America doesn't have the greatest history with the Pacific, but what makes New Zealand different in terms of trust with the Pacific?
I think I hope that Pacific countries, see that our long history of engagement with the Pacific has been very much as a trusted partner. We don't come here to tell Pacific countries what to do or what to think. We come here to engage in discussion with them, recognising that our Pacific nations, our brothers and sisters here in the Pacific are entitled to chart their own course and determine their own futures. But New Zealand certainly wants to be part of that.
Just back to why our language is more meaningful about the security pact that the states versus China. Is it just inherently because we have the Five Eyes security pact system and we're democratic as opposed to China?
We certainly know what to expect from the US in terms of our existing relationships with them. But I don't want to get into a comparison game on this. They're different situations. And our language is, I think, reflective of our position. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. To stay up to date with all the latest news from the New Zealand Herald, click the subscribe button below or check out one of the videos here, and head over to nzherald.co.nz for more details on these stories and more.